Hello everyone, Zelorant here, and today we're going to do kind of a follow-up video to previous ones that I've done on attachments, and this is going to kind of focus on how you may be able to better farm your attachments to make your overall account better versus singling out specific units, especially now that we know in the future on the CN side of things, they have a new piece that, or equipment piece, that can permanently upgrade your weapons to the point that you can actually max out all the stats where you will have a perfect attachment piece on your person with everything maxed out. And the big thing with that is, though, it is a very limited currency that we will get in the game. And with that, that means you're going to be, even though you can max out your weapons, it's going to take a really long time to do that. So one thing we're going to take a look at here is first, in the beginning, when the game first came out, the general strategy when it came to farming attachments, and we'll go ahead and look at all my attachments here, was to farm the Phase Strike attachments. And then, as we know, the Phase Strike deals 15% increased damage to targets with phase element debuffs. So basically, if they were weak to either your weapon type or your element, this was going to give you that increase to damage. That we initially farmed so that you could have generic pieces that can work on any of your T-Dolls in the game, and so that way you could just mix them around and throw them on anybody to make sure you can get everyone equipped. Then the strategy became, once you have good pieces there, just good enough, then you can start targeting and farming for pieces within the specific elements. And when we take a look at that, like I have this one on Peridia for Corrosion, and the big thing with Corrosion is, it's a 5% increase in damage if you're using the correct specific damage type using this. So this one, if you're dealing corrosion damage, you're getting that 20% increased damage, which is a nice boost. Now, this was the kind of general consensus is this is the best way to do it once you're kind of set in, because you're going to get more damage out of your character. And once you get pieces re-rolled to kind of good stats, as you can see like on this piece, when you get them re-rolled and you like where they're at, you don't have to do anything more with them. But with the addition of that new piece that can actually max out your stats, and what I mean by that is, like on this piece, if I use that new equipment piece, as you use it, it will increase it by 10% each use. Kind of like the precision chips guarantees it to be 100, and that one, it will upgrade it by 10% each time. And so if you think about it, when you look at this, all the way up to this arrow is 100%. And then halfway over is going to be another 100%, and then all the way is 200%. So if you want to fully max out a piece, you basically need a 300% stat. Now, these chips that we are going to get on the CN side increase it by 10%. So if you think about a piece like this, the worst case scenario, which I've never seen the starting stats really low, but a worst case scenario, if you could somehow have 0 on all of these stats, which I've never seen that, so I don't think that can even happen. But if you had 0 on all these stats, it would take 30 of this new currency to completely max out this stat. And that would be the same with all 3 of these. Now, generally, you're going to get like up here, so you're only going to need like maybe like 50 or 5 pieces to max out this substat. And then depending on how your rolls go on your substat rolls, which we'll say if you use those other precision chips, you're going to have at least 100%. So if you say that, it can take another 30 to completely max out an entire piece. The one thing is, with those chips, they are very limited. They're very similar to the cores in that you get very few per month. And the number I've seen thrown around was you get about 17 per month, which is about basically the same you get on the cores. And that's not including events, so you'll probably get a little bit more than that. So one thing with how that works is if you're wanting to min-max as many characters as you can, it might be better now with that piece to actually just focus on getting perfect stats on Phase Strike and getting multiple copies of those, especially for the AR. And that is simply because once we get the loadout system in the game as well, it's going to be very easy to swap these weapons around on your T-Dolls. And if you can get a Phase Strike one, and you can get all of these, now this doesn't have the right ones, you want the attack, crit, attack for your damage dealers, but if you can get one of these pieces with attack, crit, and attack, and then use those pieces to completely max out the stats on the equipment, that piece is going to be better on a majority, in like 90% of cases or 95% of cases, versus trying to min-max separate pieces here and there and getting a 5% additional damage down here. And so the idea is you just farm Phase Strike, and that's pretty much all you farm until you have at least, I'd say, 4 sets. Because, I mean, you could probably go for 5, because you could have a team of 5, but you're not going to have 5 damage dealers. So just having like 3 or 4 sets of Phase Strike, and then slowly work on, once we get that new chip inside, and we could actually take a look here. I have it up here on the Discord, so we'll actually take a look on Discord here. Now, this is when it came out. It came out with the Nikita release in CN. And so it was right here when they talked about it. Added the new fire control calibration chip to the attachment calibration pipeline. And what it basically does, increases the stat of your attachment by 10%, like I said, and increases the min stat. So that's that starting stat that's before the arrow. It'll increase that one first. And then it requires 1 fire calibration chip per upgrade. And then requires the target attachment to have greater than or equal to 100% all stat enhanced. And that just means you've used the orange chips, the ones we currently already have in the game that can guarantee all 3 of your stats above 100%. You need to at least have used that, and then you can utilize those to push it up. Now, they are going to be very expensive. It's 50k gold each time you use it, so that's another reason you're going to want to conserve gold as well. But this is also, once you start using this, you cannot calibrate them again, so you want to make sure you have as good of rerolls you can on it, because this is going to be not only expensive on gold, but you're going to have very few limit of these chips. But the idea is basically now farming Phase Strike, maxing those out on the substats, because the benefits you're going to get on the substats are going to outweigh, they're going to significantly outweigh that 5%. And we can take a look at a piece here to kind of see that difference. And so if I go into Klukai, let me see if I can find 2 that are kind of different here. Yeah, okay, yeah, here's a good difference. So you can see this piece right here, I got a pretty terrible roll on the crit rate on this one. It's really low on the substat, and it's really low on the percentage added to it. I'm only getting a 7.4% crit rate there. But if you look at this one, this has a decently better here, and it's gotten a little bit farther on the other point here, and it's at a 11.6%. And if you look at this one, that one's 10. And let me see, do I have one that's even higher than that on another character? See if there's any that kind of have a better difference here. 9.5. Oh yeah, okay, and then you have a crit. This one's almost completely maxed out because it's actually a perfect substat, and it's almost all the way over there. That one's 14. So you can think one of them had like 7%, and this one has 14. That's a double. That's double on the crit rate. And you can use this piece on all 3 of these stats. So if you think about a attack, crit rate, attack, and you max those out, and you're basically doubling all of these stats, that is way more valuable than having that additional 5% here. Significant enough that it is going to warrant, in my opinion, farming Phase Strike sets now, and then making those perfect so that you can put those on all your damage dealers as you swap them in and out with when we get the new loadout system, versus trying to max out each individual stat on the separate elemental pieces. And that's just because we're going to get so few, you're going to be at best able to max out like 1 attachment, maybe if you're lucky 2 attachments per month. And so it's going to take a long time to max out all the elemental pieces, so you better off just maxing out a Phase Strike set, at least 1 or I'd say at least 2, but I think maybe you can go over 3 with how many people use ARs in this game. And with that, now you have perfect substat weapons that you can swap out amongst all of your T-Dells. Now, I don't know when we're going to get this update. I just know that we will eventually at some point get it, so it's best to plan for that now, because right now you can, it doesn't take that long to get a couple pieces. It seems like about once or twice a week, I get at least 1 piece that has the perfect stats on it. Now, I get a lot of duplicates on the same one. It's really hard to get all 3 pieces, because I seem to get a lot of the same piece, but you do get them often enough that I feel like you should be able to farm and be ready by the time we get those new chips in, and then you can just start working on perfecting those stats when they come out. And then after you have your Phase Strike set, then then at that point, you can start working on elemental pieces. Or if they ever add like a new sets into the game, maybe those might be what you target for your next increase with those. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just thought I'd mention that because it is something that I feel like can save a lot of time, especially if we're a free-to-play. Now, if you're a whale, that is kind of a little bit different because they will have those chips in the shops and all that. So if you really wanted to max out all elemental ones quicker, you should be able to do it a little bit because you'll be able to get them in packages. But even then, it will still take time to max out all the attachments if you think about all the different elements and all the different characters, all the different weapon types. And so it seems like the general advice that I've seen, and it makes sense to me, especially for free-to-play, is that you may want to just farm phase strike since they generically work on everybody, at least everybody that's a damage dealer. And then you can just max out the substats, and then once we get the loadout system, it'll be very easy to swap that amongst your different dolls as you play the game. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to cover. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.